Hello, and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and we are having our monthly check-in with the American Council of Engineering Companies of Colorado. And we have kind of a unique show that we're doing today, actually. We are going to be talking eventually later on in the show about A3LC Committee, which is three different groups, so ACEC Colorado, as well as the Associated General Contractors of Colorado, and the Colorado chapter of the American Institute of Architects. And so it's these three people that kind of play together, which you would see on any given building. All three of these entities come together. But I'd love to introduce my guests here. I have sitting next to me Nikolaus Remus. He is the Government Affairs Manager for AIA Colorado, again, the Colorado chapter of the American Institute of Architects. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yes, our pleasure. And it was a last-minute scramble, but we got it, and you're doing amazing already. I appreciate it. And I also have with me Rebecca Snelling, Vice President and National Lean Director at JE Dunn Construction. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. And returning guest, Bill Green here, President with the RMH Group. How you doing, Bill?
Doing great, thanks.
Yes, wonderful. So happy to have you guys. So I kind of want to, as we touched on, any building that you have, you're going to have construction, you're going to have architecture, and you're going to have engineering, period. Any building ever, except maybe my hand-built tool shed in the backyard, right? But that being said, I would love to start with an overview of a typical building project and what that looks like. So I was told on the break here before we got started that the architects are the first to come to the table on any given project.
Yeah, that's typically the case. So whether it's a business owner or a building owner, developer, or an institute like a school district or a hospital, they usually come to the architects first, and we sit down and help them and figure out, well, what do they really want to accomplish? They may know exactly what they want. They may only have a general idea. So we help figure out the basic programming, we call it, of the project that they want to complete. And so then when we have a sense of what's going on there, we bring in engineers onto the team as we start the proper design process, and the sooner the better, so that we're all working together towards that goal, and then it gets built.
Nice. What time do contractors or construction, what's the time frame usually that you jump in on that? I know we mentioned there's two ways that happens.
Yeah, so the classic method is to complete the design, have a set of construction documents ready to go, and then contractors will bid on that project.
Okay.
And then they will go ahead and build it. But in recent years, we've seen some other delivery methods that are becoming more popular. Sometimes a construction manager is hired during the design process so that a contractor entity has a seat at the table.
Okay.
During the design, and then sometimes the design team is working for the contractor, so the contractor is the lead, and so they're there from day one, working with the entire design team.
Oh, okay. I like this. It's coming together for me. I appreciate that. I do. So just a side shoot of a question here. When you come to the table, do you typically have whomever's called you in for this, say, business owner,
Yep.
and they're wanting to build, do they typically have all of the information that you think you need, or how much coaching do you have to do through that process?
Oh, it is all over the place.
Okay.
So if you have a small business owner who has a great business idea and they need their space to succeed, they know some things very well. There's going to be a lot of surprises, in my experience. If you have a more sophisticated client, whether it's a developer who's done work before or someone who's done projects before, they have a better sense of what they're getting into. They may have very specific requirements, or they may know generally what they need, and they're working with the architect to figure out how to make that a reality.
Okay.
So if it's a school district, they know they need classrooms and other sorts of spaces. If it's a building owner doing a commercial high-rise, they're going to have lots of office space, but it's going to be fairly generic because they're going to have people come in later that are going to fill it in for their needs.
Okay. I like that. So do you have like a list of top 3 things that people should come to the table with already knowing that would be helpful for you and future architects?
So it's not so much that we need to know right off the bat. I mean, part of what we do is we work with our clients to figure out what do they need, what's gonna make their project most successful. So the more they know about what they're trying to accomplish, the more we can help turn that into a successful building or space.
Okay, I like that. So how are these projects delivered?
As I said before, there's there's the design and the construction side of things. And so sometimes the design happens in its entirety first.
Okay.
And then that is ready to go, and any qualified contractor could come in, bid on the project, and then they will deliver the actual building that can be occupied.
Okay. And
then the design team, in a perfect world, will stay involved through construction to help make sure that it's successful. But there's kind of a two-part process in that method. And then the other methods have the whole design team and some or all of the contracting side, the builders, involved for the whole process. So everyone is able to offer input. Maybe contractors in an area know what's the most cost-effective way to build in their area for a certain project type.
Okay.
So they can bring a lot of valuable insight to the table on how to save our clients money, how to be efficient, what materials and skilled labor are readily available so that there are no hiccups down the line.
Gotcha. I imagine you've done quite a few projects over the years, and I guess my next question is, do you have a way that you prefer this to be done? Obviously, you like both design and contractors to work together throughout the whole process, but I imagine it varies so much between the different projects.
I've had successful experiences in all the major delivery methods.
Good.
So I've done work, design build work, where the contractor is the lead. They had a client. They needed help on a specific part of their scope. So we came in, we worked with them as part of a much bigger project, and it was a great experience. There are times where it's easier just to work with a client to figure out what their design needs are. This is common in small commercial projects, and then bid it out to the contractors when the project is done. So I've had good experiences across the board, and there's definite benefits to all the major delivery methods depending on what the needs are of the client.
Awesome. Well, we've gotten through the architect part of this. I'm going to move on to contracting part of this, construction, if you will. So Rebecca, your take on when you guys make it into the works here on a building.
Yeah, I would tell you that we generally find that the more early involvement we have within a project, the better the construction actually goes, right? The more we can be involved in helping the design, and as Nick said, and helping with, hey, this solution might make better options for you because it'll cost less or labor will be less. And we also have a deeper understanding then by the time we actually get the drawings of what we're building. But I think there's a common thread. We've also seen successful projects with multiple different delivery models and contracting types, if you will. But there's a common thread between all of the successful projects that we've seen, and that's where we've been able to build a sense of team amongst the partners, the architects, the engineers, and the trades that we wind up hiring and bringing in to do some of the work as well, and the owner.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. I appreciate that. And on the engineering side of things, Bill, you want to chime in here?
Well, sure. Engineers come in on the mechanical, the electrical, structural, civil disciplines. And so, for our firm, we get involved with things like energy modeling to determine, what energy efficiency the building's going to achieve. And if the owner has some goals towards that, or renewable energy or something like that. So typically engineers support the architects and the contractors in coming up with the technical systems that will go inside the building.
Awesome. So I imagine that you guys have to have a pretty open dialogue with all of your team the entire time this construction project is going on, this building project is going on. Thoughts on that? Do you get really close with each other, I imagine?
Definitely. So as Bill said, for example, energy efficiency of a building. Well, there's a lot of different parts of a building that are have to be worked on together to make sure that's a success. So the building has to have enough insulation, for example, so that it's keeping the hot and cold air in. We have to have high efficiency systems that work on that end of things for the heating and cooling itself. On the electrical side, is the lighting high efficiency? And we're having all these questions, we're tackling all these questions together, and we're coming up with solutions as a team because, we need to make sure we have space for the systems. The engineers need to know exactly what kind of spaces they're conditioning. So there's all these back and forth things we have to do to work together to kind of create solutions from the very beginning to the details at the end.
Gotcha.
It is interesting your the perspective on that comment of it just makes sense to have all these people having these conversations. And what's interesting about that is that a lot of our traditional delivery methods are set up in a fashion where every organization along that chain is really trying to protect themselves from the risk of the project and pass the risk on to the next partners, from the designers to the engineers to the contractors to the trades. And it's so that's why we find a lot more benefit when we do open up those conversations and make sure we've got all the people involved in those kind of decisions and understanding what's getting designed. And what we found, the more collaborative we are in our delivery, we're able to really prevent a lot of the rework that winds up happening. So oftentimes in traditional design, we'll design things, the architect will design things, and then the general contractor will price it and say, oh no, this is far too expensive. And so there's this whole next step called value engineering where we go back and talk about with the client from the architect's perspective, okay, what are we going to take out that you really wanted? And it's very painful for clients.
Yeah.
And it's painful for designers, I assume, because you don't want to have to redraw stuff,
No, we want to get it right the first time. Right. Everyone wants to get it right the first time.
Right. And so it's one of the benefits that we've been able to see in the more collaborative approaches of being able to help educate the designers on cost of things before they wind up drawing it, so that we can then prevent a lot of that value engineering from happening.
And as building projects are getting more complex, we're seeing more collaboration early on.
Yeah.
It's not so simple that you can give a set of drawings to an electrical engineer near the end of the project and just have them put outlets and lights everywhere. Exactly. It doesn't work like that anymore.
Right.
So when we say traditional approach, in years past, the architect really could take the lead and then send pieces out to the engineers and then bring it all together and then send it to the contractor. But nowadays, there's so many moving parts that that is going to be a recipe for failure in most projects.
Right.
Awesome. So I imagine you're tearing these silos down quite nicely then.
We are still learning as we go.
We're doing our best.
That's fair. That's fair.
That is.
Yeah. So my background is a firm that is architecture and engineering. So we had everyone under one roof.
Okay.
So there's some real benefits to that. But then you also have specialty engineering firms who are very good at what they do. And so they're going to be a great benefit to your project because they're the right fit for it. And then also with these other delivery methods. So in the past, contractors did not come in during the design process. That just wasn't something that was ever done. But then we got ourselves into problems when it went out to bid and the client couldn't afford their building anymore. And then what do you do?
And to be fair, it's a huge learning curve for folks on the contractor side. Stepping into the role of being a design assistant is a very big shift from how a lot of people in the contractor world have grown up, where they're used to getting drawings and going out and building it, and that's how it goes. So it's a big shift in mindset for people, I think, all across the industry, right? Opening up
Absolutely.
to having help, and then being able to deliver that help and actually communicate the things that are going on in the mind. When a superintendent might look at a drawing and think to himself, what on earth, right? But being able to articulate why that is not what they're necessarily skilled at doing. They're really skilled at building things. Mm-hmm. So it's
awesome.
Different.
Yeah, that is different. Are there other challenges? Because obviously we see that when everyone works together from the beginning, you're saving money, both for yourselves, time, right? Are there any other challenges with these traditional delivery approaches?
Well, there's two things happening in the industry right now. That number one, schedules are getting compressed, and so we have, 30 years ago, we would have laughed if you said we could deliver a major commercial building in 12 months. I mean, it probably took 3 years to do that. These days, things are going so fast, and people expect them to go quickly. And so we have to make cost decisions, value decisions. The owner has to decide what he wants very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. So that's going on. The other thing is the fact that buildings are getting so complex. There are systems in them that, advanced controls, advanced energy management, IT support systems, and so all of those things are leading to us having to work much more closely together in much less time. Mm-hmm. So,
I imagine that you have some people that want to make last-minute changes.
Everybody does.
Everybody. Okay,
Absolutely,
so is that really common?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It's especially common in healthcare and mission-critical type work, data centers, and people who are advanced industries, and they're making high-tech stuff. And a lot of that last-minute decision is driven by the advancement of technology in their fields. And if you make a decision right now on a X-ray machine that you're going to put in a hospital that's not going to be finished for another year, you could be really cutting yourself out of some great new technology and need to make some significant changes.
But you see challenges even on small projects as well. Mm-hmm. So let's say a new restaurant is opening up. The owner is going to have certain thoughts on equipment and fixtures and whatnot, and sometimes they give the direction to move forward with the design, and they will work on that in parallel so that they can get that project out for bidding and built as soon as possible, because time is money. And so what happens then with those kind of schedule crunches is that they'll get the information that on their end that you might have liked to have had earlier, but it just wasn't realistic. And if you have an understanding with your client that there's going to be these last minute things, you can work with that and it's still fine. It gets a little tougher when they come out of left field, but that's just the reality of the situation sometimes.
All right. I imagine you all have had to make those accommodations, and it comes out successful.
Yes, usually through Herculean efforts. I mean, whether it's designing till 24 hours a day to get something finished, or whether working 7 days a week with a construction team to make sure you hit a deadline. But I think for every one of us, one of our goals is making sure the client has their product ready when they need it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Timeliness counts for a lot in this industry. So I'm going to switch up on you a little bit here, and I want to talk about the A3LC. Again, that is a committee that comes together. It's the American Council of Engineering Companies of Colorado, Associated General Contractors of Colorado, and the Colorado chapter of the American Institute of Architects. Because you can't have one without the other, really, when you're talking buildings. Why did this committee form? I mean, I feel like we covered quite a bit of why, but was there any other specific reason?
Well, I think it began probably at least 20 years ago, and it was an effort by those three entities to try to work together more. In years past, no one talked to each other, and so this committee formed, and what we do is we kind of talk about our issues with each other, like how can we solve problems? How can we do things more efficiently? What are our challenges every day? And I think it has helped at least the industry around here to understand each other, perhaps do some things to help each other.
Awesome. So as far as helping each other, I know that you would all need to work together on a certain project, but I imagine that you help each other out with bids, things like that, letting people know what's going on, who's knocking on your door, perhaps getting them involved with that work? Does it work that way?
Sure. We team together quite a bit.
Okay.
We talk to each other quite a bit about upcoming projects or current projects. Rebecca does a lot of work in the lean practice of doing projects, and so maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So we do a lot of my role within JE Dunn is to actually coach our project teams in our organization on some of the lean tools, which include some tools specific to getting your construction planned and delivered in a better timeline, more collaborative timeline, but also how to build high-performing teams and things like that. So a lot of the A3LC meetings that I've been part of, I've been able to either present and share some of the building a high-performing team materials that we use internally, and then also learn some things from a number of the other organizations that they're doing internally. So we're all helping each other, I think, bolster our own organizations to be more collaborative and to help move the industry forward.
And it's been a big benefit to have these conversations outside the confines of a project, because when you're working on a project, everyone has contracts and expectations, and they know they have to deliver their part. But when you kind of step away from that, you can go, well, how can we do everything better? Instead of just how can we do this project better given certain circumstances. So it's great to step back and look at the big picture with the other groups.
All right. I like that. It's this idea of the rising tide raises all boats, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're helping
Absolutely.
each other out, getting into the nitty gritty of it. Just a few things about what it takes to be a member of one of these. I assume you have to already be a member of ACEC Colorado, AGC, or AIA. In order to be a part of that.
That's correct.
Yeah, and each of those have their own criteria for being a part of that. But what were your initial thoughts, your first meeting? I would like to hear from each of you, your first meetings and your thoughts about that. And were you excited? Did you feel inundated, like this is another group I have to be a part of?
We'll start with you.
Well, I think I was asked to be part of it because there weren't enough engineers represented, and so I went, and certainly I can speak my opinion and enjoyed that. So I continued, but yeah.
Yeah. So you definitely get your voice heard at these meetings.
Yeah, and I think important subjects are brought up that, certainly if we're having issues with architects or having issues with contractors, we can talk about that and understand each other better. So, yeah.
What were your thoughts, Rebecca?
So I've been part of the committee for about a year now, and my first invite was really to go present to them. And I did a presentation, and I'd learned a little bit about it. We had a couple other folks within JE Dunn who are members, and so I did a presentation. And at the end, they asked if I would like to join, and my reaction was actually very excited about it. So the goal of that organization of A3LC is very similar to what Lean Construction Institute is trying to do, and trying to pull the industry together and progress in more collaborative and more efficient ways. And it was just another venue where I could work with people to be able to do that and to drive towards that goal.
Awesome.
And so I've also been involved for about a year. And so I started going to the meetings regularly after I joined the staff of AIA, even though I'd been a member for many years. But it's a great way to help our members know what is going on with these other groups, because not everyone has time themselves to get directly involved. Not everyone can keep up with all the latest changes to our various professions. So it's a great way to be a conduit for my members.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, you guys. We're going to take a quick break here on Connect and Collaborate. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page. While you're here, you can find more information in the description below. And check out this podcast more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. Once again, I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and we are having our monthly show with American Council of Engineering Companies of Colorado, better known as ACEC Colorado. And we took off in the last segment. We finished up talking about A3LC, but I need to do a little quick plug here. There is an event that is happening on Thursday, April 18th from 5 to 7 p.m. It's plus 20 networking event for ACEC Colorado, AGC of Colorado, and AIA Colorado members only. So if you are members of one of those groups, please visit register at agccolorado.org. So be sure to register for that event. That's, again, this Thursday, April 18th, 5 to 7 p.m. And interesting fact, this is the only committee like this in the nation. So other states are developing committees like this and modeling off of Colorado, which is really exciting stuff. You guys are at the forefront of this. And one more thing, if you aren't able to get a password for registering for the Plus 20 Network event, please call 303-388-2422. Thank you for letting me get that plug in. So again, I have Rebecca Snelling, Vice President and National Lean Director with JE Dunn Construction, Bill Green, President of the RMH Group, and Nikolaus Remus, who is the Government Affairs Manager for AIA Colorado. So welcome back, you guys. I'm having a great time talking with you, things that I don't know anything about. So you're doing a wonderful job explaining that to me today. I want to talk about, so we talked about collaboration and its importance between your three industries. But are there any new delivery methods that encourage more collaboration?
Yeah, there certainly are. There's a number of different contract types out there that support different types of collaboration. Although I will say we've actually had some of our really highly collaborative projects on projects that had traditional contract types. So what's interesting about all that is it really falls down to how people interact and behave with each other. And that's what leads to a better project. But these more progressive models are a progressive design build where the GC might hire the architect, but it's really thinking in a much more progressive way, and the owner's much more involved in design. And then an integrated form of agreement where we actually, instead of having multiple contracts between all of our parties, it would be one contract that all of our parties plus the client would sign on to, and even some of the trades that deliver some of the bigger scopes of work. And they all together share in that risk and share in the rewards that come as a benefit of that.
That's a really neat concept. You're wasting less paper, which is awesome too. But more importantly, I like that you're all coming to the table and, you know, again, the rising tide raises all boats, but at the same time, you're sharing the ups and downs of this. But interesting concept. Are your clients digging this?
The ones who get involved in it and actually start to behave in a different way themselves are loving it. They're seeing tremendous results. The project teams are seeing tremendous results. Unfortunately, I think there still are a number of people out there who want to get the results from an integrated form of agreement project, but they don't understand that it means you have to behave differently no matter who you are. It's very different behavior than what you would traditionally do. So they're expecting those kind of results, but still behaving the way you would in a traditional delivery model, which causes worse results at the end of the day. And then the team is unhappy because now we haven't enhanced our reward. We've now had to shelter this risk, and it's much more challenging. But the ones who are going into it and where the client is saying, I'm willing to be part of the team and behave as a team member, and the rest of the team is doing that too, you are seeing tremendous results.
Define this behavior, this different behavior that needs to come about. I think I'm on the right track here with you as far as client versus, so maybe some clients have this mentality of I'm paying you, please do what I want, rather than coming in and being a team player.
Yeah, it's you know, the decisions that Nikolaus was talking about earlier, it's them planning out with the project team and helping the team helping them recognize when is the last responsible moment to make those decisions for the project, and then being willing to do that. And when there are roadblocks on the client side, then being willing to step in and help remove those, as opposed to just saying to the team, figure it out, and then walking away, you know, helping them problem solve. So it's really everybody's in it together. And I think at the end of the day, when you see them go well, one of my favorite stories from an integrated form of agreement project is one of our mechanical contractors. His name was Sam. He was a superintendent, and he's a big, tough guy. And we're all sitting around the table at the end of the project, including the client project manager, the client facilities director, all of the general contractor staff, all of the design staff, and a lot of the trade partners. And he's crying. He's got tears coming down his face saying, this is the best project I've ever been on. I don't want to go on another project without you guys. And this was 5 years ago, and I told him I tell that story all the time. And I think he's a little embarrassed. But it's just, you get those kind of results. And that project, 3 years after it had been delivered, we got a note from the facility that we had built and the facilities director just saying, hey, we just had this inspection come out 3 years later, and I want to tell you all again, this is one of the best projects I've ever been on. And it really, when people start to behave as a team, you just get such better results.
Well, you're putting in your own work, right? That rewarding work ethic, I think, goes a long way. People feel like they're part of the decisions and they get to be a part of this team. I think that it's going to ignite some, momentum in taking responsibility for some choices. And you probably get less of those last minute, I have to have this room right here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's a gentleman, Pat Hamilton, I've worked with, and he's the COO of Adams County 12 School District. And they haven't gone to this delivery model. They can't. They've got some structural things with their contracts. They can't do that. But what they have done is they've started bringing their general contractor in as soon as they decide who their architect is. And what that's resulted in for him, he's got comments from principals and teachers that are no longer saying, yeah, this is a good project, but I wish you would have involved me. How did you miss this? But he says, by involving all of their partners, including their general contractors and their trades and their architects and their engineers and their principals and their stakeholders, they're just getting a much better product, and everyone's aligned to the same goal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love hearing that. Are there some common challenges that we're all facing?
I would say a big one that we keep seeing time and time again right now is how fast technology is changing. Getting everyone to be up to date on the latest changes and opportunities, whether it's software, whether it's a building method, everything's moving so fast that finding an entire team from the architects and engineers and contractors and trades that are either excited about the opportunity for change or already have some comfort level, that can be a challenge still to get everyone on the same page and say, no, this is something new and great. This is not meant to make your life harder. And when you get that buy-in, it works great. But there are still a lot of folks out there on every position that are like, well, no, this is the way we do things, and we're comfortable doing it this way. Why would we want to do it any other way? So that's definitely one of the challenges we see.
And in the construction world, the labor market is not getting larger. That's definitely been a challenge, trying to find enough skilled craftspeople to do the work in the way it's intended. Definitely a challenge.
Oh, yeah. We definitely need more people to be construction contract workers. So go get a job in construction. It's worth it. It's good money and benefits. I would do that, but I hate being outside in the weather. I have considered it. You mentioned a little bit how people are kind of get stuck in their old ways, right?
Yep.
Nobody really likes change. You get excited about certain things, but change is hard for a lot of people, particularly business people, I've found. So how are we overcoming this notion that this industry is too old-fashioned?
Well, I think that's one of the benefits of a group like A3LC, where you can start when you hear that someone has been willing to take a risk and they've succeeded, or even if it wasn't a perfect success, they're willing to share, hey, this is great. Maybe it needs a little work, but there's a lot of potential here, and then they can explain why that is. That really goes a long way to making everyone feel better about making similar decisions in the future. It's one thing to be told by a product rep or a vendor saying, "Hey, my way is the greatest way ever." Well, if there's no history with it yet, no one wants to be the first. But when you can learn about success stories, that's really an opportunity to get more comfortable and get your head wrapped around it before you're being asked to take the plunge yourself, and then then it leads to much better outcomes.
It's like the penguin falling off the iceberg, right? You push that guy in first.
And everyone's like, "Oh, it's not so bad. Yeah, we can do this too."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you gotta have the one penguin go first. So let's talk about the premise of the speed of trust. So, I'm not sure what that means. Whoever wants to take that.
So I'll be happy to go into more details. Yeah, what does that mean? Well, in going back to the traditional way of delivering projects, if I'm the architect and I have a contract with the client, then the general contractor has their own contract with the client. We are inherently kind of set up to look out for ourselves.
Okay.
And so it's not a perfect world out there. Sometimes things go wrong on a project, and most of the time they can be overcome. But if there isn't a level of trust between the parties, everyone's going to think, "Oh, that other party there, I can't, can they be trusted with this? They're going to screw it up if I leave it to them. I have to take charge. I have to take responsibility." And then you have to.
So it's like the perfectionist in a group project.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a very large group, and everyone's a perfectionist. Yes.
And everyone has a lot of risk.
Yeah, they
right?
do.
A lot of risk at stake.
That's very real.
Yes.
That if there is a delay or if the solution doesn't work, there's a lot of dollars at stake.
Yeah.
So everyone is conservative for their own reasons, but what it does is it can there's a lot of missed opportunities if everyone always thinks like that. So so how do we get to the point where we can trust those other members of the team to be proactive and work together? That's the tricky part. That's one of the reasons we have A3LC, is because we're still working through that collaboratively to go, how can we be better? Work in progress, but we're making great strides.
Yeah, and that is the premise behind the integrated form of agreement contract, is that if we put everybody's risk and reward together and we say you're all tied to this common goal, now you have reason to want to force to trust each other, because I can't let you fail and you can't let me fail, or else we all fail. Yeah. Right? Whereas traditional contracts are not set up that way. So that's kind of the thinking behind it. There's a great book out there by Covey, and it's called The Speed of Trust, and it talks about the higher your trust is and the faster your trust grows, the faster your delivery is going to be. And it's not a construction book by any means. It's good, frankly, in any industry. It's a great book for any industry. But if you think about any team you've ever been a part of, a sports team or a group, a team in high school or college trying to develop a presentation for something, you always got better results when you had trust on your team, when you could count on people to deliver what they said, which is, by the way, trust, right? It's delivering what you said, and when you have shared accountability and a shared goal. And the speed of trust is something that, as we get more collaborative with our projects, we really want to focus on building that quicker so that we can quickly get into moving forward together to accomplish that end purpose. An example I'll give you real quickly, a team that we had where we had some glazing, some windows that were being ordered from overseas, and they thought they were going to come in a certain time frame, and they weren't able to, and they found out last minute that they weren't able to get them. What would happen in a traditional setting is people would blame the guy who ordered the windows, and you're terrible and we hate you and now you have to pay all this money because you're delaying the project. But instead what the team did is they rallied around people who had no idea how to order windows or what to do or how to do it, and they problem solved, and they came up with an alternative solution that cut their delay time by 2/3. So they were able to save a bunch of time and aggravation for everybody, because they had that heightened level of trust, and they understood that their partner didn't intentionally do anything, right? But things happen in this world that we're in, and not always as we plan.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, hands down. But I got to ask, so do you find that there's a lot less blame doing contracts this way? I imagine at some point somebody's like, yeah, I did my job as the architecture, but construction really screwed this up, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot less blame when you have a multi-party agreement. Absolutely, because the contractor, I mean, you're removing any excuse people have that you can do that, right? Because you were part of those conversations and what's going to happen, and so if you go to build it, and it's not buildable, you contributed to building it, to designing it that way.
Yeah.
So it's you have to take ownership.
Yeah. So what percentage, each of you in your businesses, what percentage are you seeing moving towards this collaborative contract? I imagine, because it's still pretty fresh in the industry, right?
Yeah, so I started with AIA Colorado in early 2018. So my architecture experience, I have 9 years of experience prior to that. But we did design build. We brought contractors on early. We did lots of different delivery types. We weren't on the cutting edge yet of some of these very new experiences. But I think a lot of those newer delivery methods are definitely paving the way for moving even further with some of these very different contractual agreements between the parties.
Yeah, and I would say for our projects, we probably have 10% of our work in integrated project delivery right now, and maybe another 10% design build. Most are still pretty traditional. And that true integrated team is fairly rare right now because some owners can't do it. For instance, public owners are not allowed to sign a multi-party agreement like that, but hospitals are really embracing it. That's healthcare is one of the forerunners in IPD. Yeah.
Well, I imagine I feel like healthcare, that industry is pretty on top of new ideas.
Right.
Typically, that's usually their MO with whatever they're doing. I want to talk a little bit more about some benefits of A3LC. I know that you both have only been there for about a year. Bill, I'm going to start here with you since you've had the most experience with A3LC. What would be a reason that I should join?
I think certainly just to learn the other person's perspective, like what's important to a contractor. As an engineer, I may not understand construction industry all that well. I work with them, but I don't really understand their business. So if I want to certainly develop relationships with them, perhaps learn some stuff from them, that's why I joined. Also, I think the training opportunities, such as Rebecca's class in Lean, is outstanding. So, yeah.
That's really exciting. Go ahead and pat yourself on the back for that. Well, I want to ask you, what was the most surprising thing that you learned after joining? You did your presentation and that went over really well. But have you found any surprising facts since you've been there?
I think it's the type of environment that I really thrive in and love, where you've got people just putting out ideas and talking about possibilities, right? What could be. I think what I found most surprising was it's this whole group kind of going this direction, and there are other similar type groups out there, but all these groups seem kind of running their own course, and that surprised me, because in the grand scheme of things, they could probably pull a lot more power together by running by intertwining their paths from time to time. So that's what I found surprising. But it is a great think tank and a ton of great ideas, and you got a lot of great information shared back with you that I had frankly never really been exposed to before, even in my days consulting prior to being working for a general contractor.
Awesome. And for you, what do you find surprising? What's a reason I should go?
A great reason you should go, or that any architect should go, is that every architect, and frankly every engineer and contractor, has had some struggles in the past on previous projects with one of the other groups. And it can drag you down a little bit, and you can become cynical, and that's going to hurt future projects. And so having that opportunity to meet with these other groups in a more, in a neutral setting where we all know at that table everyone cares about the projects we're working on, without having to be tied to that specific project, it really kind of changes your outlook on what we can do together instead of what may or may not have happened like you wanted it to in the past.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it helps people, I think, connect at a different level.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
It's the personal connections.
Architects and contractors and engineers, they're all, at the end of the day, they're all people who actually care about what they're doing. And when you're in a traditional project, sometimes I think a lot of people think other people don't care about what they're doing. And it rights that ship, right? It puts you on a level playing field.
Oh, absolutely. I enjoy hearing that. Well, I want to do a quick brief from each of you about your companies and projects that you can speak about publicly, things that you've got going on that you would like the public to know about. We'll start here with you. With you.
All right. So as a representative of AIA Colorado, since we're members of our organization, a couple things I want to bring everyone's attention to. We are looking for people to speak at our fall conference. This year is October 31st, November 1st and 2nd, up at in Breckenridge. And so if you go to the AIA Colorado website, aiacolorado.org, you can find an application to speak at our conference. We want to hear from experts in the state. Our theme this year is Future Forward. And so we want to hear about what the opportunities are to take our profession to the next level. And you don't have to be an architect to apply. We are looking for anyone that can bring an interesting perspective to an audience of architects.
Can they dress up?
Yes, on October 31st, yes, we'll let them do that.
Perfect. I might come join you. Bill, what's up at RMH Group?
We're doing a couple of projects right now in true integrated project delivery. We've got Children's Hospital North up I-25. We have St. Francis Medical Center down in the Springs that are both integrated projects. Adding lots of value to the clients. We've got a lot of work going at Anschutz Medical Campus, and we are also doing an expansion of the National Center for Atmospheric Research Supercomputing Center in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So those are some of our neat ones. Yeah.
And I know that with bigger companies like JE Dunn, we have to be very careful about what we can and can't say.
Oh, no, it's not that. It's my perspective is a little broader than less focused around here. We did do actually a great integrated project delivery project here a couple of years ago for Rocky Mountain Institute. And that was our Denver office's first integrated form of agreement. And that was really, really fun. Right now, I think we've got a couple of around the country, very strong progressive design builds, I'll call them, and that we're doing, and we're having some great results and really enjoying that. And we also, I wonder, as I sit here next to you, if we're working on some of the same work at Anschutz right now as you. And we are wrapping up a great renovation at the Wyoming State Capitol too. So
fun.
Great.
Yes. Awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate everyone's input today. Again, Rebecca Snelling, Vice President, National Lean Director with JE Dunn Construction, Nikolaus Remus, Government Affairs Manager, AIA Colorado, and Bill Green, President of RMH Group. I'm going to ask my audience one more time, please like and subscribe to our YouTube page. You can find all of the information we discussed in the description below, so be sure to click on that link for us. Like and subscribe one more time, because I didn't say it enough. And find this podcast and more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. And do not forget to sign up for the +20 networking event with ACEC Colorado.org. Thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.